to listen to you. You're a very good interviewer. I do these all day, every day, and so far I'm very impressed with you.
Well, I'm glad, because sometimes I treat it more as a conversation more than an interview, because I know interviews kind of go on the way of like next question, next question, next question. Where this to me is more, I'm having a conversation with someone. I want them to be just as relaxed as I am, which sometimes can be too relaxed. And then it's just so like did he fall asleep? I'm like, no, man, I'm just closing my eyes. The first thing I really want to do to start off is welcome to the podcast.
Happy birthday to you. It's Tobin's birthday today. Happy birthday, Tobin.
Yeah, 31. I want to ask you, 31. Do you remember what you were doing at 31?
Did you get my gift?
Yeah, it was hair supplies, right?
That's funny, but it was a hooker.
Oh man, no. Well, wrong address. Wrong address. I did hear a good time next door though, so maybe
that was. Oh, are you in Newfoundland now?
I am in Newfoundland now. Yeah.
So I did a movie there years ago. I'm sorry, I'm hijacking your question, but we'll talk.
No, go for it. Go for it.
I don't remember 31, but I'd have to. It was a beautiful movie about. It was one of the first movies about gay marriage, and it was made by these friends of mine, Neil Marin and Craig Zaden, who did some really great movies all the way, great musical stuff too, but I can't remember the name of it. John Stamos, it's something with marriage in it. Marriage.
Okay. How did you find your time in Newfoundland?
I love the people. I love the whole thing. I'm trying to think of what it was. I remember we went fishing. James Brolin played my dad, and that was cool. Okay. We were on a boat. And it was a little rainy for summer, but I have great memories of it. I really did enjoy my time. I love Canada all over. I get to play with the Beach Boys there quite a bit, which is cool. Hold on, I gotta find the title of this movie.
Yeah, sure. When you say it was a little rainy for summer, there are Newfoundlanders out there right now going like, all right, we know he's not a Newfie, because rainy for summer is almost like, yeah, it's just normal weather here.
But I'll tell you what, the people were beautiful. The people, and I just did I had this podcast out last year. I mean, no offense, but if I open my door and throw a stick, I'll hit 6 people with a podcast.
Everyone has a podcast, yeah.
Not as good as yours.
Okay.
And but I did one last year. I have this fascinating story. I have the rights to this guy who kidnapped Frank Sinatra Jr. So I thought that would be, really cool. And it was. What was my point to that? I can't remember.
I guess your point was just like, everyone has a podcast. I have a podcast. Go listen to it.
No. Here's what my point was, that there was a really sweet girl who was a producer on it who lived in Newfoundland. Okay. And she was great. This movie was called Wedding Wars. And Dane Cook played my brother, and he was kind of a homophobic jackass in the show, not in real life.
Yeah.
And my character was getting married, and he was a wedding planner. And it was really one of the first... it was early on in the whole gay marriage acceptance. I hope it stays that way, that people stay accepted there. Anyway, it was a great time in Newfoundland, and I love Canada. Whoa, Canada! We played there quite a bit. The Beach Boys over the years, of course. One of the guys in our band is from. His name is Tim Bonhomme, and he's from Calgary, maybe, or
okay,
yeah,
somewhere out west.
Yeah. But I've been to Canada quite a bit over the years. We make movies and TV movies there.
Have you ever had for the Canadian references, have you ever had, say, a beaver tail?
Is that sexual?
No, it's it's a snack that they give you it's a skate. If you go skating, have you got obviously I'm sure you went ice skating at some point, but skating on a canal here in say Ottawa, they give you these, it's like a big sugary treat of a beaver tail. So it's it's fattening, but at the same point, it's
so good.
It's very Canadian, I feel.
Is it really a beaver tail? Like a real beaver tail?
No.
Okay.
No. I would be kind of disgusted if that was the case, where it's just hey, that is one thing that we have here. We have beavers, and you're ruining the very thing.
You're funny, Tobin. You're really sharp.
I try to be. Now, not sharply dressed, just sharp up here for the
Saget. Commandeered your show with him for the most part. It's hard to, but I'm really happy to be here, and I'm so glad that it's your birthday. Happy birthday! I wish I just saw it was. I would have sent you something. What would
Oh,
be your ultimate birthday present for me?
um, I would say
A guitar?
a a guitar. No, no, I'm not a guitar player. It would just be I guess something like signed by John Stamos, like a headshot, and says like "Best of luck, Tobin." Or
Yeah, but you got me live here on the
yeah,
thing.
oh well, like I mean, I if you want to do a request, I mean, sing me "Happy Birthday." No,
I will. We'll sing something later. Are you a
yeah,
singer? Are you a musician at all?
I sing in the shower, and I get
Okay.
told to shut up a lot.
Who's with someone? Who's in the shower with you?
It's just me, but
Oh,
then there's
who
people
tells
like
you to
out.
shut up?
Oh, like just anyone that's in public, they'll just be
Even
like,
now, okay.
they'll hear me and they'll be like, "Sir, are you okay in there?" I'll be like, "Yeah, why?" They'll be like, "Oh, that's nothing. We thought you were getting murdered." I was like, "Oh," I was like, "It was just me singing." They're just like, "Okay, please don't do that ever again." I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh man,
frustrating.
okay."
I'm not a great singer, and yet I've done like 5 Broadway musicals. I just sort of, I come. My parents were great in the sense that they never put any they never taught me to put obstacles up. Like, if you want to do something, I was never like, oh, I can't get an agent, I can't get a job. I want to be an actor and a musician. I just did it. I mean, I wish I could get back to some of that fearlessness, but I was never. I still am not. I hate singing. I don't hate it. I don't like singing,
That's
and I
fair.
seem to have to sing quite a bit. But I just study it. I just would work really, really hard on a song or songs, try to on Broadway. It's a little easier because you could sort of throw like my trick is just throw so much vibrato on it that eventually I'll hit the note somewhere in there. But singing is not my bag. Did you play any instruments ever?
I played. I think there was a time frame that I wanted to play guitar or piano,
Hmm.
and then I just realized that I wasn't musically inclined. I was more or less. I'm a good public speaker. I'm a
Yeah.
good like self. Was it like self humorous person? And I
Okay.
found when you were younger, like that was a good way to get people to kind of either indulge you or be like, "Hey, he's funny. We're all kind of sad. Invite Tobin
Stop.
over so that we can be a little bit happy." And I'd be like,
Okay.
"All
Oh
right,
yeah. That's a
right."
gift, Toby. That's a gift.
I
You
think
you
it's a gift. Yeah.
you you were saying you're self-deprecating. Is that the thing?
I like self-deprecating humor. I think
Yeah.
it's like, if you can kind of find a way to laugh at yourself, but like
Totally.
not to the point where it's like, "Oh my God, I'm kind of concerned for him." If you know your flaws and you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna punch myself before you can," but knowing I'm not punching myself like a knockout punch, I'm punching myself just enough where it's like, you're laughing, and
Yeah.
now I can hear something that you don't like, and it's kind of like an opening window or a door where they're like,
That's
"Hey,
great.
if he can laugh at himself and explain something that he doesn't really like,
Right.
I can tell him something because I know that he's laughing at himself, so it makes me more comfortable."
You should write a book on this. But
Yeah,
that's very astute. I mean, that's very smart of you because that is a good thing for an interviewer. Like you already started with being self-deprecating about singing in the shower and birthmark and all that stuff.
yeah.
And and I'm not going to reveal any of that. I'm not going to do anything. No,
Oh,
I'm kidding.
that's fine. Because you
You
know
know,
what?
there was
My book would be called "If I Only Knew."
there you go. If you
No.
if if I only oh yeah, is that my book title? There is there was a time, and I loved when the walls were starting to come down, and I was always this way. I remember doing an well, what I want to say is like there was a time when celebrities just all right, that's it. Don't take yourself too serious because we don't give a fuck, man.
Yeah.
Stop it. No, you're just like me. You're just like we're just a normal person. We get it. You got lucky, a movie star, blah, where and it I remember I did a show, I think it was called the Andy Milanakis show. I think it was on MTV, a Greek kid, very, very funny. And somebody can you hear that? No? Sorry. And
No, it's fine.
somebody so the whole concept of it was that it was my John Stamos stuck in a tree, and I'm like up in a tree like a cat, and then the fire department comes and take. I read, I'm like, what the hell is this? I said, oh well, you know what? And this was like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So then you started. I mean, I didn't start it, but you could see how the stars were starting to make fun of themselves, not only on talk shows and stuff. And I remember seeing George Clooney wear a Paris Hilton wig on Letterman. I was like, that's it. Okay, the gates are. You can't take yourself too serious. So the self-deprecating thing you talk about is it's so important to just because we really aren't. You've met a lot of celebrities now, right? I mean, we're not that. We're not. Well, first of all, we're not different. I wake up every day and I just make a list of all the things I'm grateful for, uh, because. But I mean, I could be, but for the grace of God, I could be Aladdin at Disneyland with a hi,
Yeah.
a boo. I lucked out. I was in the right place at the right time, and I worked hard, and I was nice to people, like my dad taught me.
I want to ask you because to kind of like really getting into things here, like because when you mentioned that to go on the same topic here, like when you started off, you were working in, I believe it was like your dad's restaurant or your dad owned a
Hmm.
business. But
Yes,
like,
yeah.
a lot of parents, when you mention something like, I want to be an actor or a musician,
Hmm.
some of them will steer you towards it because then they're like, basically, like, let him try it so that he doesn't come back to us in like 30 years and say, you never let me do it.
Right.
But it seemed like your parents were kind of like, sure, like, go for it. Because I read that you were like enrolled to go to a university or a college. And then like the first semester, you were kind of like, not for me. Like, I'm going to try this acting thing. And then
Uh,
like maybe it was like 3 weeks, maybe 3 months. Then you had like General Hospital.
well, I didn't know to back up. I didn't get that far with the college. I wasn't
Okay.
very what's the word I'm looking for? Academical. That's not even a word, but see, that tells you.
Astute.
Um, yeah, I wasn't any of that. I wasn't book smart. I remember thinking in school too. It's like, what? Why do we learn? I don't need to cut a frog. I don't want to be a frog cutter. Well, what are we doing? And it
Yeah.
was like, or trigonometry or something. And it was like, well, this is yes, maybe you'll never use trigonometry, but it'll teach you how to learn things. Well, why don't you teach me how to learn things I'm going to use in life, like dealing with women, balancing a checkbook, dealing with anxiety or fear or depression or whatever people go through. So I didn't get very good grades, and I was working for. So you were saying like parents. My mom was go for it. Love,
Okay.
just you could if you want to do it, do it. If you can dream it, you can do it. Disney says. My mom wasn't Walt Disney, but she did have a mustache. No, but so I was like Saget. I mean, sometimes I channel him with these jokes.
Yeah.
But my dad was a little more leery about it. And I was working at his restaurant. He was building. He had two restaurants. Then he bought another. So there were three fast food places. Um, it's sort of like the Greek, like you see in Saturday Night, Live, was a cheeseburger thing.
Yeah.
And but he was building the business for me to take over. So he wanted me to go at least get a business degree at the local college by our house. It's called Cypress College. And I didn't. I couldn't find the room that you sign up for. The sign up
Oh,
room.
okay.
Yeah. So I didn't go. So I never made it. But I was still working for my dad, and he was like, "That's it. Next semester, you have to. I'll take you down there myself if I have to. You've got." And I thought, I got to get on TV. I got to get on. How do I get out of this college thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And I auditioned for General Hospital. Yeah, and it was one of those crazy. I've talked about this in the past where I say I auditioned on a Monday, got a call back on a Tuesday, shot out on a Wednesday, and it aired 2 weeks later. And I thought that was just sounded nice. But now that I'm writing this book, if you would have told me, it's called, I'm going through all my old calendars, and that's exactly how it happened. And I'm literally a dorky kid from Orange County. I was gawky. I know every people say that all the time. Like I was such a nerd in school, but I was, but I was just coming out of the cocoon. I had like one caterpillar leg out. Before the
I'm still in the
butterfly.
cocoon. Shh.
No, you look good. Well, I'll help you out. I'll pull you out
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
Um,
got my leg is kind of stuck. It's there. It's just
I'll
not breaking
but you
through. No.
but you got Stamos to pull you through. I'll
Yeah.
get you out of there. I get you out of there. I know how it works. And so I still worked on Sundays at my dad's restaurant because he was like he didn't know if this acting thing was going to work out, and mainly he really taught me humility and discipline and you know hard work. And my dad was he was my hero, man. And you talk about you hear people talk about their fathers. I don't know what your relationship is with yours.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But my dad was always a hero. People get to the point where they go, "Oh, he's just a human." He was never that. He was always a superhero. He was bigger than life. He was the coolest fucking guy to walk in any, room. So, but he treated people. He treated the busboy like he treated his best customer, and it was such a great example to me because I try to do that myself. I love people. I love talking to people. I'm interested in everybody, but I was on the show and the show started airing and I'm still working on Sundays. And I'm like, Dad, and he's like, "You're just keep we don't know." It was Sunday. I'm your
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're my Sunday guy. I can't, you know how to do the safe and everything." And after a while, people were coming in saying, "Hey, could I have a cheese?" Wait a minute, aren't you on? No,
Yeah.
I'll have a cheeseburger. I said, "Dad, I'm famous. I gotta quit." And that was it. I never looked back, but, part of my part of the one of my favorite parts of whatever success I've had is that I've been, lucky enough to share it with my parents, my family. I used to take my parents everywhere. The Beach Boys were like, "Well, we have a gig in Australia." I said, "I'll go, but can I bring my mom and dad?" "Okay,"
I want to ask you because, like, when we're talking about the whole career side of things, getting into acting. Now, I thought it was interesting because when you go back and look at other actors that they tell their story of how they get into acting, like you're right, they basically are just normal people. But the one that really kind of sticks out for me is I think it's like John Krasinski's story of how he got the office. And he
Yeah.
mentions that he was like acting and acting for years and
Mhm.
it was nothing. And he calls his mom with like a week and he's like, I'm giving up, I'm coming home.
Mm.
And she tells him, give it another week. And then he
One
gets
more.
the office like within like another week for that. And I'm just like, of
Yeah.
course he does. Of course
Yeah.
he does. But like, have
Well.
you had those moments? Like, I know you had early success going on, but like,
Mhm.
have you ever had those moments where you're kind of like, man, like, is this for me? Is this
Mhm.
really what I want to do? Like,
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've been so lucky to kind of keep plodding through. I mean, I've had years and years that weren't great, and one failure after another. But I think those are the ones that I've learned the most from. I like we were talking about Broadway. I've done 5 Broadway shows. Four musicals, and one was a straight play with James Earl Jones. But I did it. I took over for Antonio Banderas in Nine, at the musical Nine, and it was a very complicated piece, and I just shit the bed. I tanked it, and I got it closed. So those things I think I've learned more from. It's interesting that there was a time. I mean, the Krasinski story is great because it says don't give up. Like if you have
yeah,
to do it, if you really want to do this, do not give up. And again, don't. There's no reason anymore why you can't, at least at the very least, make your own shit and put it on the YouTube or on Instagram or whatever. I was working with I did this uh, a TV show last night with Jimmy Fallon show called it's a music thing, something about whatever. And
okay.
the girl from Abbott Elementary, do you know that show?
Yes,
Quinta, her name's
I've
Quinta.
seen a couple clips of that. Yeah.
Now here's a girl who put her own little show on social media, I think it was, and then it got a little bigger on there. And now she's winning Emmys on ABC with this incredible show that she created and wrote. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. If you want to do it and you believe in it, don't give up. Be like Krasinski. Wait for that one more week, or Quinta. I mean, the, when I was a kid, no, I sound old. Like when I was a
When
kid.
I was a kid.
When I was a kid. I mean, I had we had a 8 millimeter film camera, and I have to try to make a movie on that, and then get it developed, and then the only place to show it was in my living room because it was,
Yeah.
there was a thing. But now there's no excuse, so you got to go for it. I've had moments where I didn't think I'd quit, but I've had a lot of low moments in my life and my career, especially with, personally with people dying. And, I had an issue with substance abuse for a little while there, and I had to pull myself out of that. But I always had my parents, and I always had my sisters around now, and always had somebody to say, "Hey, you'll be okay. Just get through one more week, one more week." I remember I auditioned for ER years and years ago. Clooney was leaving, and it was going to be the next big, star on there. And but it was basically my job, my thing, but they wanted to see me read. It was like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sure, yeah. And I got ready for it, ready for it. And I walked it, and it was like a bunch of medical terms that I could barely, get out. And I thought it was kind of going to be more like a meet and greet, but it was like I walk
Yeah.
into the room and there's like 30 people, John Wells and all the producers, all the directors, the head of the studio, the head of the network. And I'm like, ah. It's almost worse knowing that it's yours to lose. And guess what? I lost it. I was
Okay.
so shitty. I mean, I literally shit the bed. I barfed. I bled on all these people. It was so bad. I was like, oh my God. And I went home, and the casting director called me. I said, so what did they think? You shit the bed. And that was the first time I had ever heard that term. I was
Yeah.
like, great. And I called my mom and my dad. That didn't happen, And my mom was famous for writing these notes, and I found them over the years. And remember finding one saying, "You don't have ER, you don't big fucking deal. You have you have your
Yeah,
youth, you
yeah.
have your look." And years later, I did go on ER for the last 3 or 4 years, and it changed my career. But I remember one day I was sitting around with John Wells, the creator, the writer, and the producer, great man. And I said, "John, do you remember when I came in and auditioned for you years ago to play that other role?" He said, "Yeah, of course I do. We love you." I said, "Well, what do you mean you love me? I was so fucking terrible. I was awful." I said, "No, no, 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 you weren't. No, I mean, yeah, the lines were hard. We didn't care about that. We didn't want to have you have to replace Clooney. It was too much pressure on someone like you. So we went a complete other way."
Okay.
And that's that. I said, "Oh, it's like that. Those moments. There's a lot of that goes on, right? You have this perception of what you think someone thinks of you. Most of the time, they haven't thought of you twice,
Yeah.
or it's the wrong, or do you ever have that where you're just living with something like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I should have said
Oh,
that?
all the time. But it's like
Yeah.
I know like through pitching, like say if you want this podcast on more platforms. Now again,
Mhm.
the self humor part, but it's like you pitch this like NBC or whatever, like TBS, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
sorry man, we don't want you replacing Conan. I'm just like, oh, thank you. Like I
Yeah.
understand. It's like,
Yeah.
back in the
Y-
day, replacing
y-
Letterman for Conan was a big deal. But like,
exactly.
but at the
Is it?
same point, like I kind of have to at myself be like, listen, sometimes I sit down with the guy who helps me do the podcasting and promoting it, and
Hmm.
he'll sit with me and be like, why are you so fucking mad that you didn't get this person on? Or how come? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, because I think I can offer them something that other people don't. And
Hmm.
then it just upsets me because I'm just like, I'm not getting that opportunity. But then he'll go back and be like, all right, but look at these people that you've interviewed. It's like,
Yeah.
why are you so mad? I'm just like, because I'm not mad about this. I'm just mad because we have those people. We should like now we have to expand on this, but I'm not getting that opportunity.
But
And then
take
that's
your
what makes me
wins,
mad.
man.
But
Take
yeah,
take take the wins. Take your
yeah,
wins and go and let that, let that take you into the next thing. You can't, man, it's rejection, 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 and more rejection. And as soon as you can deal with that, there's so many moments that I remember too, thinking about like when during the time of auditioning for something, or I really wanted something and I didn't get it. It's like, oh my God, my career's over. I'm
so
never
I feel
gonna.
every day. No.
Well, but it's not, because one day you're gonna go, look at this. I got Saget, I got Stamos, I got the guy from this thing, and whoever you said early on, and then someone's gonna go, wait a minute, you got them?
Yeah,
We don't want you. No, thank you. No, you
yeah, yeah,
got
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Wow. But to listen to you, you're a very good interviewer. I do these all day, every day, and so far I'm very impressed with you.
Well, I'm glad because sometimes I treat it more as a conversation more than an interview because I know
Hmm.
interviews kind of go on the way of like next question, next question, next question. Where
Yeah.
this to me is more, I'm having a conversation with someone. I want them
Hmm.
to be just as relaxed as I am, which sometimes can be too relaxed. And then it's just so like
Everybody.
it's just so
Yeah.
like, did he fall asleep? I'm like, no, man, I'm just closing my eyes. Uh, but no, I just like I think the conversation aspect is something we're missing in social media because I know people want to promote things and listen, sometimes it can be very genuine if an actor
Hmm.
comes on or a musician and they're
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, I've got a new song out." I'm like, "That's great." And I know that they're like kind of PR ready because they've got what their
Yeah.
tidbits are. And I'm like, "Okay, you know what? Screw that. You
Hmm.
save that for someone else. When you're on here, it's like I want you to be genuine. I want you to be open. Like when you said
Totally.
I was listening to the Bob Saget interview and I bawled, people
Hmm.
would be out there like, "Oh, he's never said that in other interviews," or maybe he has, but it comes across more genuine when you
Hmm.
actually see it rather than me being like, "Yeah, man, like I was watching the Detroit Red Wings last night and they sucked." They're like, "He did not watch the Detroit Red Wings. Look at his face. He could care less."
Yeah. Yeah. That's absurd. Yeah. I mean, that's all. That's right. Um, this medium is really incredible, and I was afraid of it at first because it's like, shit, I'm going to talk for an hour and a half with somebody. I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
But I've really leaned into it. I was on and again, like, it's taken. I'm almost 60, man, and I'm just now coming into my where I should be. I think. I mean, I
Okay.
wasted a lot of years, but I didn't give up. Right, one more week, and uh, things kind of come around. But I was on Dax Shepard the other day, and I mean, if you do it right, like you, Dax, these guys, you'll. I mean, he started off in his garage, and I mean, he had
Yeah.
access to people, but he's like you. He's a great listener. He was very well prepared, and but what was I going to say about that? This medium is beautiful because you're right. Like, if I go on a talk show, any of these shows, you got 5 minutes. You gotta be humble. You gotta be funny. You gotta promote your shit. You gotta listen. You got to get, some jokes in there. You got to be emotional. You got to be
Feels like
real.
it's
You got to
more
be approachable.
consuming. Feels
Yeah,
like
it
it's
is.
very consuming, right? Like,
It can be. And there's a,
yeah.
there's a real art to it. Some of the guys like Hanks is one of the best, and I'll be on a talk show with him. I was on something with him a while ago, and he's just pacing the backstage, working on jokes. Is this funny? Is this funny? Yeah. How
Yeah.
about mine? Is mine funny? So anyway, this is much more relaxed, and you're doing a great job, Tobin. I
I,
believe in you.
I want to ask you to kind of like, because I know we're going to go into different segues here, and I hope you're comfortable with the first one we're going to get into. But like, obviously, working on Full House, I want to ask you, like, what are some of your kind of favorite memories of Full House? Like, because
Mhm.
listen, I'm born in '91. So more than likely, when I was getting into Full House, it was kind of in the later seasons, but TBS would show like reruns. So like I'm probably watching it in like 98, 99 and being like, oh, when are they going to come out with a new episode? Right? And I'm just like not knowing that's reruns. But at the same
Yeah.
point, it's like I dived into that show like I dived into Boy Meets World and Family
Okay.
Matters.
Okay.
But like I want to ask you because I guess in a weird way, like when you asked Jaleel White about being Urkel or the
Mhm.
line of did I do that? After a while, it has to get annoying. Did you ever get annoyed when people came up to you and said like "Have mercy"?
Well, I did, yeah, for many
Yeah, yeah,
years.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't anymore. But it was, look, my when I started the soap operas as we talked about, and
Yeah.
that show was, it was 30 million people watching General Hospital Day, and it was like boom, it was just sort of blasted out there. And it was, I hate to say it was a great training ground because that sounds disrespectful to soap actors, because it's not. I mean, it was for me because I was 18, it was my first
Yeah.
job, and I sucked at it. They called me the sponge. I stayed too late, and they were like, John, go home. And I was just learning as much as I could. And then I but I always wanted, I left early. I became very popular on there, mainly because my mom probably called them and wrote letters and stuff. But because my
Please
character,
don't fire him. Please
please
let him
no.
stay.
Well,
Yeah.
my character was supposed to die after 5 days, the Blackie Parish,
Oh
and
wow.
so I signed this really low end deal because I was new, and they were going to kill me off. So it was kind of 2 years, but only if they kept me. And so it was like $400 an episode, something like that, which is
Yeah.
and the show got very popular. And I wanted to be on a sitcom my whole life. I dreamed of being like on a Happy Days or more, like I loved Gary Marshall and his shows. So that was my goal. And I remember, and they kept throwing all this money at me, say, well, stay another year. And I was like, nope, I want to be funny. I want to be on a sitcom. I don't know where I got the balls to do that, and the producer, Gloria Monty, was a wonderful woman and a very powerful name in daytime. She changed the face of daytime, made it younger and fresher and movement and people. And she took me to lunch on my 20th birthday. She said, I'm going to take you to lunch for your birthday, dear. I said, oh, great. I knew there was something behind it because I was going to. She heard that I was
Yeah. Yeah.
leaving. We go to this Italian restaurant in Hollywood, La Familia, and it was straight out of The Godfather. Something very, Italian music playing, and Dean Martin was there. My hand got Dean Martin was there, and I knew the Beach Boys a little bit at that time, and I said, oh, because one of the Beach Boys, Carl Wilson, his was married to one of Dean's daughters, Gina Martin. I said, oh, I know Gina. And they said, "Oh, the maitre d' said, oh, he loves Gina. Come say hi." I went over and said hi, and he was older then, and so, but it was very like Godfather. And I sit down with Gloria, and she says, "So, dear, they say that you're leaving. You want to leave the show? Why?" I said, "Oh, I want to be funny. I want to be in a sitcom." And she said, "Well, if you leave, you'll never work again." And I
Oh
said,
wow.
uh, "Well, no, I think I probably will. I'll probably get a job." But meanwhile, like when I think back at it, it was like she had a gun under the table, like a silencer, and all the waiters. And as soon as I said I'm leaving, like they pull Dean hits the floor, and Gloria
Yeah.
Monty hits the floor, and the waiters take these, pepper shakers and
Yeah.
plow me down. That's what I thought it was going to be. But I didn't. I left. I don't know why, but I went on. And what the hell am I? What were we talking about again?
No, no, no. Like it was just more or less, I guess, because when people ask you about Full House
Oh,
and you
so
mentioned, yeah,
right.
yeah, like
Sorry,
going
this is
on.
long.
Yeah, no, take your time.
So as
Yeah.
soon as I got it's your birthday, we gotta
Yeah.
celebrate. As soon as I got through that, I wanted to be on sitcom. So then I got on this show with Jack Klugman, and he played my father. And it was a great experience. And that's where I met Gary Marshall. And Gary Marshall was the one who suggested me to play Uncle Jesse on Full House. Um, so I did, but Full House was presented like this. It was like, it's three guys, like one's a comedian, you're a rock and roller, one's a dad,
Yeah.
and there's some kids in it.
Yeah.
Couple
We don't
kids.
know about them. We don't know what happened to
Yeah,
those.
the kids, who knows? But it's the three. It's a buddy. It's like bosom buddies.
Yeah.
And Miller and Boyd had produced Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari. So I said, great. And then I remember the first table read. We were in some weird hotel. It was in the 80s still. And Jodie Sweetin, who plays Stephanie, blew the roof off the place. I mean, people couldn't stop laughing. They're still laughing for 35 years at that table read. And I remember running out to the lobby, putting a quarter in the machine, calling my agent, said, "Get me off this show. It's a kid show, and I'm going to be the kids are the stars here."
Yeah.
But so it went on, and look, the one of the greatest things that came out of that show was obviously to me was my friendship with Bob, and we didn't like each other in the beginning. We just came from different.
Wow. Okay.
People were always shocked that we became such close friends. You look like Luke Perry right now, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I feel like that's a compliment. I'll take it as a
It is.
compliment.
I mean,
Yeah,
he's
okay.
passed away, but not now. You look when he was alive and healthy.
Okay, good. I was gonna be like, you look like Luke Perry now. I'd be like, oh man, I gotta go check some things.
Bob Bob was more concerned about making the crew laugh and the guy pulling the cord and this guy over there. I said, put that in the show, man. And I came from more of an actor's,
Yeah.
point of view, and I just worked with Jack Klugman, who was a genius, and so I wanted to, dig into every scene and make it. Why am I doing this? Why are we hugging 3 times? Maybe one hug,
Yeah.
So I drove Bob crazy probably too, and he drove me nuts with, But then we eventually started to admire the things we didn't like in each other. I think I learned so much about. I love comics. I love stand-up comedy, and I learned so much from Bob. And I think he learned a little bit about acting for me. But then when the show ended, we were just there for each other, deaths, marriages, births, but I wanted out the last year or so. I was not. I wanted, and all these other shows were coming up, Seinfeld and these sort of smarter shows on television. I was like, I want to be on that. Like, what am I doing on this show? Keep in mind, like, yes, the show's lasted 35 years. It's a phenomenon, really, I think, but it wasn't the biggest hit when it first came out. The reviews said it wouldn't last till Thanksgiving. Ha 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 ha. And so it wasn't. We didn't have any. It wasn't respected at all. We had no. We had no respect. I mean, I think we were on the cover of TV Guide once or twice. And it wasn't even. I think I was on once maybe, but Dave. So it was like that, and I said, I don't want to do this, and so we ended it. And for years, it was like you said, like, don't call me Uncle Jesse. I'm a serious actor, and trying to play all these stupid roles. But eventually, I just started to get other work, and I did ER. I went to New York and did a lot of theater, and played some smaller roles and good stuff, and some of my own shows. And then I just got far enough away from it. I just did enough. I was confident in myself that I started to gain respect here. I'm still trying to, and then I go, okay, it's all right. There's a moment I'll never forget it. I was doing this show on Broadway with James Earl Jones, who's arguably one of the greatest living actors ever. Angela Lansbury, rest in peace, was in it. John Larroquette. It was a heady Gore Vidal play about politics. It was called Best Man, and I was playing this asshole politician, who was cheating and lying, and redundant with politicians. But and it was 3 hours, two act breaks, and standing ovations, and people, wow, they're next to James Earl Jones. We're taking a bow, the whole thing. And we go out to sign autographs after. The people that have watched the show wait by the stage door. Uncle Jesse, hey, Uncle Jesse, I go, that's it, fuck it, I'm Uncle Jesse. I don't care. I was just on stage for 3 hours, with James Earl Jones. You want to call me Uncle Jesse? Go ahead. And they were saying the same shit to him. Hey, Darth Vader, or Darth. Right? Say, Luke, I am your father. It's like, no. So you come to a point where you just go, and it's given me. Look, it's given me a beautiful life. It provided, fame and fun, and I met all these beautiful people, and I got to take my parents around the world. So I am very grateful to that show. And it took me a little while, but
I think there just comes a time, like, honestly, where it's like, if that's what people remember you for, it's flat. Like, I'm not an actor. I'm not going to pretend to be, but like, you want to come outside your bubble. It's like, let's put it this way. I'll try to put it in terms that I would understand.
Okay.
I scored a game-winning goal when I was in university in like a ball hockey tournament. But if that's
Are you a
all
good
people
hockey?
were,
Are you good?
I'm a decent ball hockey player. I
Yeah.
feel like I am. But
Why
like,
do you call it ball hockey? What is that different than the regular hockey?
yeah, like ice hockey is skates. Ball
Yeah.
hockey is
Okay.
just literally like in a gym with your shoes on with hockey
Okay.
sticks. So it's a little bit like less ice skating skills,
Okay.
which is
Good.
good for me.
Yeah. Good
But
for
like
me too.
if I was like 45, 80, and then
Mhm.
I'd done this, I've done other things, and people were like, loved your overtime goal or loved the goal that you want to. I'd be like, there's a
Yeah.
part of you that's like, that's my legacy. But then there's another part of me that's like, I played my ass off to
Yeah.
get that goal, to like
Right.
earn us this championship. And if that's what you remember me for, and if you go back in life and say, that's the type of player I want on my team, then I'm like, all right, I left something.
Mhm. What
But
about Tobin tonight? That's what you're going to be known for now.
I would like to think that that would be what I'd be known for. But like, there's always going to be, again, there's an audience out there that doesn't even know I have a podcast, right? So then you got to look and say, okay, what do they know me as? And then that's where, like, again, when it comes down to, maybe people don't know John Stamos as Uncle Jesse. They don't know him as the guy on Big Shot. They
Mhm.
probably just remember John Stamos as, hey, he took time to do podcast interviews. He's a very genuine, nice person. And that, I feel, goes a longer way
Yeah.
than anything that you'll ever be started. Sorry, Stamos. No.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But
Well, that's observant.
I want to ask you too, because talking like we will eventually branch off, but I just have like a few more full house questions.
I have a
But
few more
like,
questions for you too.
yeah, but oh, perfect. I want to
What were
ask you,
you
like,
like as a kid?
I
You
was,
funny?
I feel like I was a troublemaker.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like,
Like
yeah,
what kind of trouble?
man, I was just kind of a Weisenheimer. Like, I
Like a
was a
smart
young,
ass?
yeah, like I was a smart kid, but I was probably just
Yeah.
like, like not
Sarcastic.
not in front of people. Okay, like if a bully came up to me and was just like,
Mhm.
I want your lunch money. I'd be like, okay, here's your lunch money. And then
Yeah.
like 5 minutes later, I'd be like, you know what I would fucking would have did to that bully? It's like nothing. You would have did nothing. I'm like, would have made him laugh, and then
Were
while he
you
was
bullied?
laughing.
Were you bullied as a kid?
I'm lucky that I wasn't bullied a lot.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well,
I
Canadians.
feel like with the birthmark, it's kind of a given. Like, hey, I'd get like, hey, look, it's like Kool-Aid Man or Kool-Aid Stain, and I was just like,
Mm.
okay. And as a kid, you're kind of like, I don't get the reference. And when you get older, you're like, wow. Like, again, self humor. You're like,
Yeah.
damn, that's a good one, but
That's a good one.
it still hurts.
Mm.
Still hurts a little bit.
Well, people are so polite in Canada. I bet there's no bully. I bet people don't. Bullying is like, hey, get off my chair. Okay, sure.
I wish it was that easy. If someone was like that in like Newfoundland, where it's like, "Hey, buddy, you're on my chair," and it'd be like, "I'm not leaving this chair."
Sorry.
It's like, "Well,
Sorry.
sorry, you have to get up." I'd be like, "Oh shit, he said sorry. Now I have to get up because
Yeah.
oh, Canadian."
But you know what? We got to learn from that. You guys are so not, so polite and so cool. It's always although I think you might be stuffing some
Oh,
stuff down.
probably. There's got
I'm
to be
kidding.
something that we're like hiding if we're that polite. Like,
No. Well, some of my best buddies, some of my greatest friends over the years have been Canadian. I love my Timmy Bonhomme. He's one of the guys in the band, and we show a video sometimes of him skiing with his shirt off. In Canada somewhere. It's really
I'm
fun.
sure that was freezing. That like our weather
Well,
climate is just cold
that's
all
you
the
guys.
time.
You don't care. So wait. So you were a smart ass kid. Now were you into the girls, and what was that about? Do you have a girlfriend, boyfriend? What's your deal?
Yeah, no, I don't have a girlfriend.
Mhm.
I don't think when I was in school I was very not gonna say likable as much as it was just more or less like kept to myself. I was
Uh-huh.
kind of a smart kid,
Yeah.
and I didn't want, like, not that I didn't want to engage with people because I tried, but it's
Yeah.
just like,
Mhm.
again, if you're in, I don't want to make it sound like a High School Musical is full of false advertisement here, but like,
Uh-huh.
if you're not a jock, you're not a cheerleader. If you're not into like certain things, you're kind
Mhm.
of out of this whole niche. And that was me. I was like, I could associate with different people,
Mhm.
but I was just never into like, hey, if someone was like, okay, in order for you to hang out with the hockey people,
Mhm.
that's strictly hockey. I'm just like, no, because my buddy's in fucking bowling and I want to talk to my buddy in bowling. No, you
Mhm.
can't. I'm like, well, too bad. And then my buddy in bowling would be like, you're going to go talk to that guy. He's an asshole and he's a jock. I'm like, yeah, but I want to talk to him because he's nice to me. So,
Yeah.
and then they're like, all right, exclude Tobin from everything. I was just like, oh wow, okay. So pick a
I'm gonna have a
lane.
podcast one
Yeah.
day, and you're gonna wish you
Yeah.
didn't
You're
exclude
all
me.
gonna be
You're all
upset that I
out.
have a podcast. They're
I
like,
got
no,
Saget
we
Stamos.
could care less.
Yeah. No, that's
Uh,
not true. Yeah, that is bullshit with all that. I was a band geek, so I didn't fit into anything either, but I was like a sort of dorky band kid. Look at
so
me now.
yeah, yeah. So if there's band kids out there now that are probably like, man, I feel like such a dork. It's like, yeah, well, one day you won't
Yeah,
be.
but band kids are cooler now too with High School Musical or whatever.
Well, oh yeah, obviously.
Did
It's
you
like
have girlfriends? Did you have a girl? Did you have any long-term? What's your deal on relationships?
I never had a long-term relationship. Never had. I would be honest and say I haven't never had a girlfriend. My ordeal with that is just that I think it's more or less like kind of like what you said with I believe you said this on a previous interview, but like with
Mm,
Bob, you're like the guy that gives Bob, you set him up with his wife. I
mm.
am that guy who is almost like I need someone to be the setup man.
Ah,
I'm confident going into a room, but
okay.
it just comes across as I will be the friend, and
Hmm.
then once that's over, it's like okay, it's like
So you
who's
need a
who's setting us up?
you need Stamos to be your wingman. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
What
sure.
I used to do with Bob, I would Cyrano him, as he would say, and I would mostly over text. It's okay. Now, what did she say? I'll say this, do that. I'll jump, I'll help him pick out his outfits, stuff. But you got to have a little more confidence because I don't see anything lacking in you.
I feel like it's the confidence factor to me is not like I feel like it's good, but
Hmm.
then I feel like the other side of that is the rejection, where I feel like you go in, you're super pumped, you feel like you can own the room, and you probably
Hmm.
do. But then
Hmm.
the moment that, like in my mind, now again, this is the comic side, it's like that one person where you're like, oh, it's like, okay, they're laughing at me the whole night. They think I'm funny, blah, blah, blah. Then you go up and ask them something or ask them out, and then it's no. And then that's like a sitcom no, where it's like, no. And
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
whole room is like, he just
yeah.
got rejected. And then
Yeah,
you're just like, I can never come back in this bar.
yeah. But one more week, one more girl, one more room to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Look, it's hard. I get it. And I know you don't probably people out there may not believe, but I was always afraid of someone saying no. Even when I became famous and stuff, I was like, that was even worse because I figured like, what are they thinking? They think I just because I'm on TV that I could ask them out. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know if they're married. I don't know if they're, what their deal is, if they have a boyfriend. So yeah, I get it too. Most of my relationships or dates or didn't come from me like, hi, would you like to go out with me? And it was either someone fixed. Even then, like I would be fixed up with girls and I would just be afraid to make a move on them because I didn't want to be disrespectful. I didn't know if they
Yeah.
want it. And then the next day they go to my friend, go, is he gay? Because he didn't touch me. Like, no.
Yeah. He's trying to
But
be he's trying to be respectful. God.
I think you're 31, man. You got a lot of good years ahead of you. Do you go
I
on
would hope.
dating on sites on the are you on any of that stuff?
You know what? As for someone that's kind of grown up with media, I
Hmm.
just, there is a time frame, I'm sure, when I was like 20, 21, 22,
Hmm.
25. Like, no, no,
Hmm.
like I just continue. But it's like I went on apps and I was just like, okay, like because I've heard friends that meet people on apps. So I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, good. Like, and sometimes you look at that and yes, that makes sense. You're a perfect match. There's other times where I'm just like, okay, I don't know how this algorithm hooked you two up, but sure. But to
well, how
me,
do you meet people? I mean, it's so cold
I
there.
yeah, I meet people through sports. I meet
Yeah,
people basically through. I know when I was in Ottawa, I was involved in a lot more sports and a lot more
yeah.
like going out. But I had this conversation with my friend the other day where I was just like, when you look back at because I went to university and college, that's like your perfect place to kind of step up the bat and strike out because there's no more bigger window than basically if you went up to someone in your class and
Hmm.
said, "Hey, like, do you want to just interact with them for a bit, then ask them out?" Because you know what? You're both in the same class, you're both in this university. What's there really to fear? But I find like once you get outside that whole student life and then you
Hmm.
kind of get into the real world, it's like, all right, I don't really know how we came across or met Pats.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, it's always kind of funny to me. And I really love this show was like
Hmm.
How I Met Your Mother to see how like all that kind of folded up. Like when I was in
Hmm.
university and watched that, I was like, yes, that sounds like a great Hollywood story. I'm
Yeah.
sure in real life there are stuff like that, but it gives you hope. But then at the
Yes,
same time, I'm just like, well, that's basically why you don't force it because some things like sometimes it just happens that way.
that's true.
I
And
loved how they wrapped it up because they were like, if this didn't happen, this wouldn't happen, that didn't happen. I'm like, all right,
right,
perfect. I don't have
right.
anything to worry about.
That's true. I got a
Yeah.
good story about that. But also, but that was Bob's voice, wasn't it? On that, didn't he
Yeah.
narrate that show?
Yeah.
See, we always kind of
Bob was gonna kick my ass if I didn't tell him that in the
yeah.
episode. I was like, nah, we're not talking about that. And he's like, really? I was like, I'm gonna kick your ass. I was like, all right, Pop.
I know, I heard him cussing. Um, yeah, that's really true. It's about letting go a lot of the times, and just you can't if you try to hold on to anything too hard, people read it. If you try too hard, people can smell that. I remember taking Jason Bateman out to because I knew him from the old days and one of the family shows, right? And he
Yeah.
was became so successful. I said, "How'd you do it?" And he said, "I was like, I couldn't get a no pun intended, I couldn't get arrested. Like he couldn't get a job, and he just stopped giving a shit. I think he had kids and didn't care as much, and I think he said he was took Lexapro or whatever, and he just didn't care and didn't try so hard, and it all came to him. He had the goods. You have the goods. I had them too. Look, I met my wife now. So I had to sober up because I think any decent woman would look at me and go, no thanks,
Yeah.
because it was a fuzzy. But I was doing an episode of Law and Order SVU years ago, and I was playing this rotten character who I remember that I getting a call and they said, "Oh, there's a guest spot on Law and Order SVU." I said, "What? I don't. I wasn't really keen on doing." They said, "No, you're gonna like this. We just got a call from the producer, and they said that there's nobody better to play this part. This is you. It's written for you. They got to have you because they just think this guy is you." I said, "What is he?" I said, "Well, he's a serial abuser. Like he was getting all these women pregnant without them knowing." I'm like, "What
Oh
the fuck
yeah.
does that have to do with me?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like this creeper who would he was so egotistical that he wanted to spread his progeny all over the place. So he would secretly get these girls pregnant by poking holes in condoms and stuff. And so I was in this scene where I was with this who later became my wife, Caitlin, and they knock on the door. It's a hotel or something. Open it up and it's iced tea and another guy. And she's like, "He's in there. He's in the bathroom." And they kick the door down, and I'm like, I got my glasses on and I'm poking a condom with a little needle. I'm like, "Hi guys, what are you?" So I didn't get her pregnant then, but 7 years later, I got her pregnant. We have a kid now. It took a while, but
Yeah.
but here's the deal. I worked with her. It was one day she was engaged to be married to someone else. And I overheard her saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna get." It was at Chelsea Piers. She said, "Yeah, we're getting married right over there." I go, "Don't do it," like an asshole. And then we sort of talked, but it was a dead end because she was engaged, and I respectful of that. But we did take a picture of. We had a picture to do it, and I said, "This was my move, by the way. Write this down." I said, "Do you want this?" "Oh yeah, okay. What's your number?" Because you have to text them the picture. So she got that, and we texted a little bit, and she said, "Look, I can't. This is not cool. My husband." I think she told her husband I was gay, or she thought I was gay because we talked
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
musical theater and Disneyland, and I said, "Okay, no, that makes sense. I get it." She gets married 7 years later, so I come into the soundstage of Fuller House that we did, and I was producing the show, and I walked on the floor like a big shot, and I look up, and she's sitting in the audience in the
Yeah.
front row with some guy, and I say, "Oh, are you stalking me?" She's like, "Don't flatter yourself. The girl over there is a friend of mine who you
Yeah.
cast as the thing." I said, "Oh, okay." Her friend was in the show, Kimberly, her name. I said, "Was this your husband?" And she said, "No, I got divorced." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And then we started talking. We hung out a little bit, and here we are. But it was like I wasn't ready for anybody decent. So the only thing that I could do is work on myself.
Yeah.
So and present the best me that I could present out there. And then that's the only control we have. We have no control over anything else.
So I want to ask you because when you're saying like the best version of you that you can be, like again, it's a touchy subject. If you don't want to touch it, we don't have to. But like again, going through just sobering up, like
Mhm.
was that kind of going through that as well? Because I know I read. I generally don't like to read, but sometimes if it's a topic that I'm kind of interested in, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll read on it. But like
Mhm.
I understand, or again, it was like Josh Peck was a guy who kind of
Mhm.
helped you through that. And
Mhm.
like I think it's interesting because when I think of like sobering up, like I don't know like many actors that had to go through it, but like Josh Peck doesn't come to mind as a guy for me that's like, oh, like definitely like it had to be Josh because Josh
Drake
goes
and
through
Josh.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, it was just a time. It was a my lowest point was I got a DUI. I was driving drunk and messed up, and it was I could have killed someone, Tobin. That would have been
Yeah.
fucking terrible. I remember looking in the mirror around that time going like, who is this guy? This is not who my parents raised. I'm not, this is, what have I become, And you just sadly, slowly just creep towards, keep moving the line of discipline and taking care of yourself. And it just got the best of me. And so I shot the pilot for Grandfathered, which was the show I had on Fox, and Josh was playing my son, and he'd been sober for a while. So I shot the pilot, and then and it got picked up, and then I had this DUI, and I went to rehab for a month, and it was very difficult. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so we started the show up, and Josh was a sober guy, and he as good sober dudes do, they help each other out. So that's how that happened with him.
Okay.
And it was, it's been 7 years in last June. It's like, I'm not gonna fuck this up, man. It's not worth it to me. It took me a long time to realize that, but having a wife now and a kid, and he's 4.5, and like, I couldn't imagine getting. First of all, she would have ran for the hills, especially my wife. She could see through everything. So, but that's the Josh part of it. We were working together, and he's still one of my dearest friends.
Like, I want to ask you, because of course, going through like that and sobering up, like, again, I know it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but like,
go ahead.
Like the passing of like Bob, like, did that ever, like, because I know sometimes like all it takes is something to just drive it back into focus of like, oh man, like, because listen, there are very few times when I will like see a news article or something that gets you really overwhelmed, and these are people that you don't really know. Like, I remember reading on like a TSN update that Kobe Bryant had passed away, and at first I was kind of like, I was thinking it was a dream. Not that I'm like Kobe Bryant's best friend, but I was like, dude, this is a player that I grew up watching, and now he's gone. And then like you see Betty White now. In all fairness to Betty White, like she was old, but she did live a full career, and that was still shocking to me because it was so close to her birthday, I believe.
Why was it shocking? She was almost 100.
But it was still like, because it was so close to her birthday, and then they were having this whole thing for it, and then it's almost like now she's not there for it. But like, and then I think it was maybe probably a few days after that, like I read the Bob Saget tweet about Betty White, and then it was like, now Bob's gone, and I was like, you got to be fucking shitting me, like, because I was just like, we just interviewed this guy, we just had him on.
How long was it after? How long did he pass
it was
away
probably like I'd probably say maybe 8 or 9 months, maybe that.
And it wasn't your fault, right? You didn't.
No. Although
that's a Bob joke.
Listen. A lot of people, when they listen to that conversation, they will send me the clip of Bob saying, "I don't want to die," and I'm just like, "That's not on me. It's Bob."
Oh, you said that?
Yeah, like in his clip, he says like he talks about he wanted to get back into stand up because we were just getting out of pre-pandemic. And he's like, man, I want to get back on stand up. I'm dying to do stand up. I don't want to die. And I was just like, that's when people clip it and send it to me. And I'm just like, don't blame that me. It's not me. That's Bob.
Of course it wasn't. But Bob, but I have a bunch of clips just from over the years where he did talk about dying, and he did talk about how he was dying. When he passed away, sorry, I'm holding it.
You did. No, that's fair. I'll join you in. I got one here.
When he died, for some reason, I went back to his book on tape, his audio book. And when the book came out, I don't know, 10 years ago, whatever it was, maybe longer, I read a couple of pages like, this is stupid. I'm not reading this, because it was Bob and it was just talking about his balls and stuff. But for some reason, nobody else could do it. I gravitated towards it, and I started listening to it, and mostly in the middle of the night. And I would put them on before I fell asleep, so I would hear Bob's voice. Like that should be the last thing I would want to hear before I'm sleeping, because he liked to talk. But it comforted me somehow, and I would sleep. But 2 nights or so, I would wake up and it's like, wait a minute, did he talk about hitting his head in it? No, it couldn't be. Go to sleep.
Oh, wow.
I hear it again. Wait a minute. I wake up. I remember telling my wife, I kept skipping around. I found it. He says, he jokes about it, but he says he would hate it if he died. He would hit his head in his house or something, and he hoped he was in good shape when they called 911 and the ambulance came and got him, and he died. Something about hitting his head, dying. I'm like, what the fuck? And his daughters and Kelly, his wife, told me, after that he projected his death a lot. He talked about dying a lot.
Oh
wow. Dave did a podcast like early on where he was trying to do one, and Bob and I were on there. And I have tape of it. And at the end, Bob just talks about how he's going to die. He's going to splat. He's making these noises. He's talking about having diarrhea, all this crazy stuff. But it was, it still is such a fucking shocker, man. And I just can't believe it. It's just too much. It's too bad. He was such a good, and we could talk about my new show a little bit if you'd like.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You
But
tell me whenever you're ready.
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
But what I was going to say is, and I talked about this, is that so he died, and it was so sad that he didn't know how loved he was, because he didn't. I mean, he probably just he would puff himself up, but it was all out of insecurity. He didn't really believe that he didn't believe, and he didn't know how great he was and how loved he was, but what a talent he was, and how many people admired him, and how many lives he's changed and helped. I have so many people go, Bob, you don't know this, but Bob saved my life. My sister's life was scleroderma. Bob did this.
Yeah.
He would do these little things for people. And it was just made me so sad that he didn't really know it, And so I did an episode, the last episode of Big Shots, this season 2, where a coach friend of mine dies, and all the news comes out, and he did all this great stuff. And I go, shit, what about my legacy? What have I done? But I wanted to make sure that that my character was around to that's your niece and nephew.
No, that's God. God right now is calling me like, hey, you fuck off talking about your legacy.
It might be. I think it was CAA, my agent, same thing. But I wanted to, so the girls at the end, it's graduation. And while I'm alive and while I'm here, the girls come up and say, this is how you changed my life. This is what you did for me. This is what you did for these people. People stand up. And that's the thing, that's Bob's legacy, man. We have to tell people that we love them, and that we're proud of them, and that they're, because tomorrow's never promised, as we know, as we interviewing him, and now he's gone.
Yeah. Like to kind of slide into to Big Shot. Like I'll say this, and then we'll go into the Big Shot kind of routine, but it's like, I remember growing up and watching Full House, and I remember relating to Bob even at a young age, because I was like, man, I like being super clean. I like being like kind of dorky. And it's like, you see it and you're like, okay. But like, I would watch AFV then on weekends, and it was Bob Saget hosting. And I was like, man, this dude is kind of like, now I have a father. I love my dad. But it was almost like, this is like my TV dad. Like, this is like, I see him on weekdays, and then on weekends I'll see him again. And it's just like, I'm not to the point where I was sitting there like, this is what I got to today. I got an A in school, Bob. Pay attention to me, Bob. I was just kind of like, you know what? It's nice to see him on TV. It's nice to, and like, I remember in high school, there's a TV show that would show retro like channels, and they would show retro AFVs. So I would come home from school at like 15, 16 and watch 1994 AFVs, and people were like, what's wrong with you? Like, do you want to go outside? And I'm just like, man, like, no.
What's AFVs? What is that?
Like the America's Funniest Home Videos. So like now it's called AFVs. I guess back then it was like America's Funniest Home Videos. Yeah.
You see how I told you I'm not that smart? I mean, I should have got that.
Come on, man. Come on,
AFVs. I know.
Yeah.
I'm not cool like you. TT Tobin tonight.
Yeah, there you go. I feel like if someone's gonna be like, I watch TT, I'd be like, tea time, like what? And they'd be like, no, do you not know your own show? I'd be like, sometimes I'll lose it. I want to ask, because going into Big Shot, like I've seen bits and pieces along the way. I think, now this is my personal opinion, I grew up with saying, like, one of my favorite sports movies is Coach Carter. I also like the Mighty Ducks. I feel like this is like a combo for me of, because it's Disney and you're like playing a coach in this. I feel like it's a good combo of like Coach Carter meets like the Mighty Ducks, because you're taking a team of like women, young women, and like you're trying to get the best of them, but you're also trying to find your way along the way, like to better yourself. But I feel like Coach Carter does that in a sense too, that movie. Right?
I don't know Coach Carter from
oh man,
from
you
Wonder
have
Woman.
to go watch Coach Carter, and then you'll probably phone Disney and be like, I can't play this role anymore.
Why? Coach Carter, who was in that?
I think Samuel L. Jackson is in Coach Carter.
Oh yeah. I didn't see it.
I love, it's just, but I get a lot of good, like a lot of vibes from that when I was in like preteens.
Yeah.
And I was in basketball when I was younger.
I was gonna say, you're a sports guy, so did you buy me as a coach and the little snippets that you watched at the show?
Totally. No, absolutely.
I didn't know anything about. I don't come from. My dad was an athlete, but he used to say, you go out of your way to hate sports. I don't. I never got it. I don't have it's just not part of my thing. Um, I could catch grounders, but that was I didn't like balls.
Yeah.
I just never. Someone always had to lose too.
Yeah, yeah. What, you
But
don't like people losing? That's how you like get the anger out, and then you go back next week, and then you want to beat that team to gain something.
well, I can act that. I can do that.
Okay.
I went to. Do you know who Jerry West is? Do you know Jerry West?
I've heard the name. I'm not gonna lie and say like, oh yeah, I know his
That's
history, but
good. You
I've
shouldn't
heard
be.
the name. Yeah.
He was a Laker, but he was a great Laker. He's the logo they called him because it was the Lakers logo.
Okay.
That logo was after
Now I
him.
feel dumb, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's all right. It's okay. You know, you're supposed to be a sports guy, but it's not hockey. So,
Okay. All right. I'll
how
try
about
that.
Candace's husband, Beret? Right? Do you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Pavel.
Bob Pavel,
There's
right? Yeah,
Pavel. Yeah.
yeah. He's buddies with Putin, so we don't talk to him.
Oh
But
yeah.
I'm kidding. Well, he is though. I think he is. I think he's a Putin guy. But
Yeah. Yeah.
now I got sidetracked. So this guy is a great coach. Anyway, Jerry West, and I went to visit him before I did. Someone introduced me to him, and I went down there and I said, "Hi, Mr. West. You know, thank you for inviting me to the rehearsal today. First of all, it's not rehearsal; it's called practice.
Oh wow.
You
Okay.
know, those aren't costumes; they're uniform. You know, but he was great, and I studied up, but." It was the scariest thing for me because I don't go to games. I don't know anything. I have one of my best friends, Roger Lodge, knows everything about basketball, so he's helped me out a lot. But it was scary trying to figure out how I would play a coach. But I think I tapped into, you know, some of the great coaches that I studied. Bobby Knight who threw a chair is
Oh
pretty
yeah.
powerful guy, yeah.
I'll look back at like sports clips, and some of the like most famous ones that I think are like, it's interesting to see like where their career takes them. But like some of the ones that I look at, like I can't remember the coach because again, it's not hockey related, but it's just like we're talking about practice. It's like I just hope we can win a game. Like you
Yeah,
guys are talking about no playoffs, or it's like you want to talk
right.
playoffs,
Yeah.
playoffs, and I'm just still like those are the coaches that I would just love to have like behind the scenes to be like, you know, whether they geared up for that or like it was in the moment, because they're pissed off of after a loss. But like,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
was.
when they have to answer the PR, and then the PR people are Weisenheimers like myself, and they're like, "You lost like 5 in a row. Like, what's going on?" And they're like, "Shut the fuck up. You got." They can't even say it. They can't say, "Shut the fuck up. You try coaching this team." They got to
Yeah.
come out and be like, What's wrong with this team? Like, I'm trying to figure that out myself. Like, you know, like I thought we played great. What's going on?" But no, like I like Big Shot because there's still the elements to me. Like now, if I'm putting it just strictly in your terms, it feels like me when I'm watching from Full House to Big Shot. This is like the evolution of like Uncle Jesse going from like, hey, there was one time that he was this like bad boy doing, and then he gets kids, and now he's like the adult dad role. But now it's not just like him focusing on himself, because I feel like sometimes Uncle Jesse did do that. It was all about Uncle Jesse. But this is like now it's like, oh crap, now I have all these like adolescent kids that I have to teach. But like now I'm their go-to. And there are scenes where it still kind of brings me back to the Full House moments where you're teaching them, but they're opening up to you. And then this is like a realization for your character to be like, all right, like I'm not just this coach anymore. Like they're trusting me,
Right.
and I got to take this responsibility. And like, I know like in season 2, it becomes more of a less of a prick or a dick and more of like, we're going to give him a layer of he is kind of a warm-hearted guy. But I do like how you kind of said he still has to have some dick qualities. We can't have him turn him right into a Care Bear, which I like because you still have to have evolution to the character. But yeah, if all of a sudden it's like season 2, yeah, he's no longer an asshole. He's a nice guy. But like done it's done. Series is over.
Yeah, well, that's all very observant, except for the Full House part.
Yeah,
But,
man, I'm a very observant guy.
I know you are. Yeah, it has all those elements. You know, it really is a wonderful show. I love it. I like playing this character. The key to a good character on television and lasting character, I think, is a flawed character, and he certainly is. The key is that he learns, because you don't want him to be a complete prick. He learns a little bit about what he did wrong. He's a guy who's kicking and screaming, going into what it means to be a modern man, really, and letting this machismo bullshit. And it really does shine a light on the inequality of women's sports versus men's sports. He talks about the beauty of women's basketball, that they play a better game, more interesting game.
Yeah.
But then he sticks his foot in his ear the next time. And I'll say stupid shit, and you have to have a character. I mean, he's not Archie Bunker, but he's a guy who's like says dumb shit,
He's
says,
trying his
"Oh,
best.
fuck,
He's trying his best,
trying
but
his
he's
best."
not completely there yet.
Right. And
Like
who
the,
is? I mean,
you
but
know.
let's get back to I have something I wanted to tell you. So
Sure,
yes,
shoot.
Big Shot is I'm
Get
really
see
proud
see
of
what I
it.
did there? Shoot, big shot.
Oh, is
Oh,
that a yeah.
oh,
Okay, see?
come
See?
on, give me
I got
something, Stamos.
good one. Good one. Yeah, good one. Um oh shoot, you know what I have to do? I have to go soon because I do the voice of Iron Man on
Okay,
Spidey and it's amazing. So I have to record in a little bit. But Dave Coulier from Full House, he plays hockey and played hockey.
we've
He's
been trying
from
to get Dave on just to be just to say, but Dave is like very hard to get.
harder than me.
Yeah, apparently.
He'll go.
You know
He'll
what?
do anything.
You know what, Stamos? Reach out to Dave and be like, you know what? Tobin has gone 2 for 2. We need Dave.
Let's see if we can get him on FaceTime. You know what? This is good. Let me see if I can get him. I talked to him earlier. He lives in Detroit now, but
Oh, he'd love it because I have Detroit
hmm,
Red Wing stuff here in the background.
there you go.
Yeah.
But he was, he played hockey and stuff. But he would do. Hopefully he'll answer because I want to. He was doing these celebrity hockey games in the 90s and stuff, and he took me on a few. And he'll tell a great story about. Oh, good. Hi, David. Now listen, I'm on this kid's show, Tobin, tonight. He's in Canada. He's a hockey fan. He loves you. Bob was on a show. I'm on the show, and he says I've been trying to get Dave, and I can't get him. I said, well, I'll get him. But we were just talking about hockey. I wanted to talk. It's the only thing he can relate to is hockey. This kid.
Wow,
Is
thank
that
you.
sorry. I need to take this out. So here, I'm going to do this. So I wanted to tell him a story where he used to take me on these celebrity games and some of the hockey guys that I met. Dave, meet Tobin.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Tobin.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm here in Detroit.
Well, that's good. Like I have a Detroit Red Wings room set up here, so like hopefully you can join this podcast at some point so we can talk about it.
I would love to.
Yeah, I'm sure Dave would be great for you guys. You could talk. But I used to go on these. Dave would do these celebrity hockey games, and it would be like half really great old pro hockey guys, and then celebrities. And he would bring me out to be like a coach or some kind of thing. I knew nothing about it. But tell him a story about one of those, Dave.
Well, we played against the 72 Boston Bruins Cup team.
Okay.
So they had Esposito, Hodge, Orr, Cheevers, Derek Sanderson was on the bench, Busick, Cashman. It was everybody. And
Who?
It was sold out at the Boston Garden, the old garden. And so John's our coach, and there's a big buildup. Esposito comes out, and everybody's going crazy. So now they know Bobby Orr, number 4, is coming out. And the place is going absolutely crazy because Bobby Orr hadn't been on the ice sheet there at the Boston Garden since he retired because he had some knee problems and major surgeries. So the place was electric. So they introduced, and I'm standing next to Gordie Howe on one side of me on the blue line, and Keith Magnuson from the Chicago Blackhawks, tough guy from the Hawks, was a sweetheart. He's on my other side. And those two guys are just looking at Bobby Orr skating on the ice, and Magnuson has tears in his eyes. And it's an emotional moment. And the place just gives Bobby Orr a standing ovation that just will not stop. It's literally 5 minutes of people just going crazy. So I skate over to the bench, and John looks over at me and goes, Who's this Orr kid?
Well,
I go, that's Bobby Orr. Okay, he's up at that time. Until that time, I think before Nicholas Lidstrom, he had, I believe, 7 or 8 Norris trophies. He was the best defenseman, a guy who revolutionized the game of hockey as a rushing high scoring defenseman.
mm-hmm.
And John just had no.
Well, I thought the hockey players were supposed to be so tough, and here's this big guy crying over here, this big guy crying over here. I go, what's so tough about these assholes? So
Coulier, are you surprised that this guy gets a role of Big Shot, which is like a sports TV show kind of thing, and then this guy's just don't know nothing squat about hockey, and here he is now being a coach?
Well, that's where his acting ability.
Yeah, there you go.
Totally.
If he wasn't a great actor, we'd be having a different conversation.
I think people laugh at that.
Very talented to be able to pull this off. But when we were doing Full House back in the day, whenever there was a sports scene like playing basketball or skating on the ice or hitting a golf ball. I always had to teach John and Bob, how to either throw the ball, or how to catch it, or how to hit the golf ball, or how to shoot.
Do you remember when I was playing basketball? It was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was on there. I didn't know who he was either. He's just tall.
That's right.
And I went to make a basket, and I pushed the ball, and it hit the rim and went bam! Like smacked me right in the fucking face. And they used that. They thought, well, that's great. We'll just use that. I'm like, I'm seeing stars.
Yeah.
But wait, Dave, didn't we go? I remember sitting at dinner at a diner with two big hockey guys of yours, and I think you went to the bathroom, and I was like, all right, guys. So what's this hockey thing? How do you play it? They had salt shakers and peppers, and like, okay, here's the goal. They were like really intensely telling me about the game, right? Dave came back from the bathroom and was like, what the fuck? Who was it? Like, who were the guys?
I think it was I believe it was Darren McCarty and Steve Yzerman.
Oh, okay, there you go. Really, those are like two fantastic players. Come on, Stamos.
I didn't know.
4 Stanley Cups, those guys. But you know what? They treated John like he was one of the boys, and we raised a lot of money, and we had a lot of fun during those games.
They were fun. But Dave was always a superstar. Dave was really good, and who else was like I was
okay. Jason Priestley was pretty good, pretty good skater. We had an all-star team. We had Michael Keaton.
David Kelly,
David E. Kelly,
Michael Fox. That's right.
Yeah, Mike Fox. We really did have Alex Trebek, Richard Dean Anderson. We really did, and then Kelsey Grammer would be our coach. Clarence Clements would be one of our coaches. Leanne Rhymes was a coach. She sang the anthem one night before one of our games. So we really did have a star-studded lineup, and it was so much fun. And John used to come and be one of our coaches, and it was a blast. Those days were so much fun.
What was the guy's name? The father on Growing Pains, was it? Alan Thicke, who passed away. He was great too, wasn't he? Hi, John. Dave, will you come do Tobin's show sometime? Because he's a really good kid. He's in Newfoundland. He's a Newfoundlander, and his dad is fixing the closet in the background there.
Yeah,
his dad just walked in. Kind of reminded me of your dad, Dave. He kind of walks in. I said, "Hey, sir, Mr. Tobin, can we talk to you?" He said, "I don't have my teeth in. I got no teeth." Dave's father was the best. He just passed away recently, but Dave used to call him Spooky Tooth because he had one tooth that was kind of floating around, like a ghost.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad, we always said he had a sweet tooth, and we were like, well, that's it, that one tooth.
Can you see Tobin? Am I even?
Yeah, I can see him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry.
Tobin, my mother's side of the family is all from New Brunswick.
Oh, okay. East Coast. East Coast, okay.
So, yeah, I'd love to do your show, John. Slide him all my deets.
There you go. See that? That's all. He said you were the only. He couldn't get. He said he couldn't get you.
Yeah, like imagine out of Bob, John, and you, it's like you're the hardest one to get. Like, come on, Dave, what's going on here, man? You're top secret.
I'll get you his info. He was talking about Bob, Dave. He had him on the show. And Bob was talking about dying or don't kill me or, how he was. And I was just telling Tobin about your podcast that you had. And Bob was talking about dying, remember? And how the noises it would make and everything.
Yeah, he goes, this is the sound of me, the last sound I make right before I die.
Yeah, we miss him. All right, I love you, Dave.
Love you too.
And did you get your wife the medicine for the COVID?
Yes, she's good now. So she sends her love.
Okay. Bye-bye. Say bye.
Bye.
See you, Dave.
See you, buddy. Love you. See, there you go, Tobin. I can make all your dreams come true.
I appreciate that because it's like most times you reach out to PR and it's like sometimes
Okay.
I'm not sure. I honestly, it's
I
like
think you guys would be good together because you both want to talk about hockey and I don't. Well, how are we going to celebrate your birthday? You going to go out and have an oxtail or whatever you guys eat there?
I think I'm
Beaver
just
tail.
man, like honestly, I think I'll probably watch like a Detroit Red Wings game, get some Boston pizza,
Nice.
play some PS5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, think of me.
Yeah, I will create John Stamos in NHL 23 and just be like, get this guy 20 goals, or at least 10.
Yeah, give me some.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to John Stamos for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.